Good afternoon, good evening, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Data here with Casey and Klemen on part 6 of our Unified Customer View series. I think this is the last part, folks. How are we doing?
Not the last part of the show, I guess, but the last part of that part.
The last
Part of
part.
one of 4 views. Yeah.
Doing good otherwise.
It took us 6 hours, 6 weeks.
6 parts. Oh man. But here's the why. We just had an email from a client, a mutual client, me and Casey. And listen to this, Klemen. They want to discuss the unified customer view and how they can make this a goal of their SFDC integration. Can you imagine such a goal related to integration of Salesforce with HubSpot?
Nice.
Like, that is, in a nutshell, the power of this activity that we've been going through for 6 weeks. When you can get, like, it's simple language in terms of unified customer and view. Why is it not a mythical thing anymore? Because we have AI to help us handle all of the things that get in the way, or handle a lot of things that we've had to do so that now humans can handle the human stuff, like bringing everybody in the room and having the conversations that we need to have. But, this came from a session that we did yesterday where it's like the unified customer view and the need for it, and that as a goal can inform something like a Salesforce integration in a way that avoids the 2 ways it usually happens, which is we want to simplify it. So we're just going to, push one way, and one system's going to be the system of record, and we're not going to have to figure out dual syncing, right? Or we digital twin them, destroying HubSpot's data model in the process, because we can't figure out exactly which data that we need, and we can't agree on it as multiple teams are involved and who owns which data where. Like, those are the conversations that are super complex, super conflict heavy at times, right? But when you can, meanwhile, the people doing the integration, they need to know which data you want to flow, right? So if you don't know, it's those 2 options, right? And so what we're going to talk about today is more like common pitfalls like that, the things that will usually get in the way of achieving, unified customer view. And there's data stuff we're going to talk about. There's human stuff we're going to talk about. There's AI stuff we're going to talk about. But this is, in a nutshell, like, imagine if you could make a heavy, complex integration easier because everybody agreed that unified customer view was one of the goals of the integration, right?
You're 20% towards the goal already when you start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, common pitfalls and how to fix them. Even well-intentioned implementations can go wrong. Here are the most common pitfalls we see, along with symptoms to watch for and specific fixes. If you're experiencing any of these, you're not alone, but they're all fixable. Speaking of minimizing the data flow, right? Only configuring contacts and companies. You've got a unified view, which maybe there's some engagement on there, Maybe there's definitely demographic data, like fit data. But when you aren't surfacing deals and services and tickets and all the other context, right? People are forced to go into other systems or export data to really create their unified view.
Yeah, I just the call before this one was showing leads to a client, and I know leads isn't one of the ones listed here, but the I love when I get to show someone in something in HubSpot that like solves their exact pain point. Like the exact pain point was we have these deals, but they're not really deals, but we want them to be deals. And I was like, leads. It's like just is leads. That's it. And the specific person came from a Salesforce background, and leads behave differently there. And so even the word lead, they were like, no, that's not. I know how that works, but that's not how it works. How I want it. And I got to be like, no, this works exactly like what you're wanting to do. So I just echoing that, I think some of these get hidden, especially you now in HubSpot have to activate a lot of the objects. So for this specific client, they were like, I don't even see leads on my menu. And but all I did was click 2 things or something, and there it was.
Coming back to, I guess, the initial discussions, you have to figure out the processes not limited by your understanding of the systems. If you start with that, what you're looking for, and there's a place in HubSpot that can give you that.
Yeah. And that was the thing that resonated yesterday, and why we just got this email. Like, without something like a unified customer view, you rely on the technology or the SaaS vendor to tell you how it should be done. And if you search right now, even with AI is going to say, yeah, HubSpot, that's for contacts, companies, and deals. Right? And even though you know that's not going to give you a unified customer view, like you're gonna follow the best practices, or the people that you're working with that are willing to do the work, that you're paying to do the work. They're going to follow best practices as they know it. And they probably don't know a lot about HubSpot if they're integrating a different system. And, here we are, impossible to get the view that you want, right? So what we're doing is like the complexity of getting to your unified customer view shows up in all of the conversations that need to be had to create the slides that you need at the end of the month to create the unified customer view, right? As opposed to figuring out the data model and all the records and object types involved that can just systematize it and make it, create maintained, trusted data. Next on our list, Klemen. Properties exist, but nobody uses them. Familiar?
Oof.
What's that? Never heard of that. I think that came in each of the episodes in a way. There is data, but if you don't make it available to the humans who should use it, no matter how good you are with bringing their data to that property, if it's not available visually to the user who should see it, and then also all those conditional properties that are visible based on where the contact is in the journey, gets in conversation to make that visible. If you have 30 properties all visible, go and find the one you need. But if you can have only the 6 relevant ones, then you'll immediately see those 6 relevant ones, if they're populated or not. And if they are populated, you see the data you need.
Yeah, I think this is a huge problem in every HubSpot account I've ever been. Sorry.
I think you have an interesting take here, Klemen. Like when you think about, or you talked about it before, where it's like, forget about having truly clean data or truly complete data, right? Like, can you share that here? Because it definitely applies.
What should I show?
Like, why is that a good policy as opposed to we got to get our data cleaned up and we got to make sure everything's filled in?
For various reasons, you don't need to really, and you shouldn't chase 100% clean or complete data. One is sometimes there's just no data available, and there is no data is a valid information. We often have a discussion with our clients when they're asking us, "So can you help us, have this property being 100% complete?" I mean, yes, but tell me which random number I write you as number of employees. If that information is not publicly available, I can give you a random number. Do you need 1,000? I can give you 1,000. Do you need 5,000? I can give you 5,000. If that data is not available, it's better to say not available data than do something which is completely useless. The other one is if you are forcing users to fill out some data for the sake of just filling it out and them not understanding the usefulness and the relevance of that data and how that data is then used further in the process for reporting, for filtering, you will force people to fill out the data which they don't want to, or they don't feel called in to properly fill it out, which means you are forcing them to create a mess, because they will. I would almost guarantee you, if you will, in that case, go into the analysis, let's say if it's a drop-down menu of 5 values, I can guarantee you, if you're forcing them to fill it out, 80% of the choices made will be the first one, because this is the easiest to click. So you get the complete data, but the completely useless data. So it's better to have sparse data, but relevant and useful, than having a complete data. And then for the sake of cleaning it up, the goal, I think, there is kind of a plateau of how much time and resources and money it still makes to invest into something. And let's say 80% of the data cleaned up will get you somewhere. To get to 85%, you will need to spend the same amount as you spend from 0 to 80%. So then the question is, where is the sweet spot of how much is worth spending so that you get something back? And the other one is, if we're talking about someone who just entered into the CRM, do you really need to have all the data completed and filled out as someone who is a week from closing a deal with? Most probably not. So again, don't chase and don't complicate too much to have, job titles filled out for each and every one that is entering your CRM, so that you ask too many questions on the forms just because you want to have a complete data. Make it simple for them when they go through the funnel as you have in your mind. You will be able to gather the data or ask them down the road. So the goal shouldn't be 100% complete, but the goal should be really relevant data should be filled out. Where I think it's a valid point to say no contact should be assigned to a deal if they don't have a job title. That is a valid and I think a reasonable ask where you require someone to fill out a job title. But not every subscriber or audience stage person should need to have a job title filled out. There's no point of that. So there are different layers why I think strategically thinking of what's the sweet spot for every property in terms of completeness and relevancy that you can make, and there are always, of course, trade-offs, but there is a sweet spot.
And again, this is the power of the view. Like the view is what usually helps you decide how relevant things actually are, right? Like if you were to look at a deal view, one with job titles associated, one without, like you in that moment will get to decide like whether or not you actually need job titles, right? And it'll start to at least create the thought process of do we actually need the data or not? Like, can you click on the caret next to high impact, right? So only create properties that will either be automated or are critical enough that someone will maintain them manually, right? And if the strategy is we always need to be talking to CTOs, the only way you can make sure you're always talking to a CTO is if the job title says CTO, right?
Yeah.
And this is where the process, and relates to our first one, like when contacts and companies are the only things you're configuring, sales owns those, right? So if you're not on the sales team, like how much enablement do you actually have to help maintain the data and create the context needed, right? When you involve these other objects, like that also have tons of properties on them, right? You get to own that, and people start maintaining data together, and that's when it actually works. You hit on most of these issues, I think. Again, it does come back to the data, but just the act of, right? Because I think that's where this is what makes this concept that you just shared, documenting a unified customer view. Every organization in the world can do that without touching their CRM data, like without cleaning it, without starting over, right? Like you can get sales in the room, marketing, whoever's customer facing, right? Maybe product too, the people building the product. Like, what do we know? People who buy from us, what do we need to know about them, right? And again, from a marketing perspective, you might be saying, oh yeah, that's why we need to have the documentation of the ICP meeting. Like sales doesn't want to do that, right? There's nuance, but documentation of an ICP is much less tangible, like for a sales team to understand how that's valuable for them, especially if the thing that makes it valuable is marketing execution against that ICP, right? As opposed to unified customer view, right? Again, starts to streamline the process that guess what happens when you decide what your unified customer view needs to be? You start to understand what your ICP looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You start to understand what properties you need to do good scoring, right? Instead of the other way around. So let's hit on I like this one about like, so we just basically hammered data quality issues into the ground. High impact, also configuration complete, behavior unchanged, right? This is where even when you get everybody in the room, sales excited, we're at sales kickoff, we're gonna start doing this thing, everybody agrees, we're gonna build these properties, we're gonna fill in this data, and then people are still doing things outside the CRM. They're still exporting data to get their job done. They're not using the views, right? Then when everybody asks, oh, what is the value of the unified customer view? Everybody's like, eh. And then they're like, oh, well, unified customer view is obviously not the right thing for us to do, right? Again, this should sound very similar to any CRM or HubSpot implementation you've ever done before, right? But this simple act of just changing the frame of what we're trying to accomplish is turning out to mean a lot. Like I still get surprised at how quickly it tends to work in some of these conversations. But at the heart of it, like changing behavior, right, takes a lot in terms of people needing to align and believing that the thing can be done and that it's going to be valuable for them. So including training, and change management as a part of this from their perspective is, still super important.
Yeah.
I think that this is a really critical piece to maintaining the unified customer view. One of my favorite parts of the unified customer view personally is we're putting it in the hands of the users in many instances. So we talked about job titles before. One thing I talk ad nauseum about is, okay, so great, you have job titles for everyone in your CRM. That's awesome. When were they last updated? Are they accurate? Are they spelled correctly? Because if they're not spelled correctly, then the filtering and things at this stage is maybe how I'll frame it, get really problematic. So I think, getting that buy-in and training on not only what the view is and how to use it, but I think even more importantly, like how it positively impacts the receiver.
I think it's similar to data cleanup and data quality. It's not about data quality, it's about what you get because of good data quality and data cleanup. The same here. It's not about, setting up a unified customer view is the first step, but when people realize the value of that view, then they will use it. So you should, definitely think how to get them to that point. And when they get it, I think they will get it and will use it.
As we go to the medium impact issues, I think we hit on one of your favorites, Klemen, notification fatigue. So often this is like, all right, we've all agreed to keep this data up. So if you don't put in the deal amount, you're going to get a task. It's going to be assigned to you, and you're going to get 8 emails about it. And then somehow they still manage to close the deal. And then that's when the deal amount gets filled in, right? Because they still got a job to do. It's so hard to disconnect these things, right? Like add more only when team asks for them, right? And current alerts are being acted on. right? So much of this can be solved for upfront if you just have conversations of like, we agreed to do the view. You agreed it was valuable. You're getting these in your inbox, right? These notifications. Oh, you're not? Okay. Well, let's solve for that. Oh, why not? Because a year ago, you set up a folder to push all HubSpot notifications out of your inbox. All right, good to know. Maybe we could do less notifications. Maybe it's training on how to come back to this view. Maybe we need to bookmark it because you're a bookmarks person and you would rather scroll through 1,000 bookmarks than 1,000 emails. Like how do you guys, like, are you coming into HubSpot or after this and like starting from blank notifications and starting to work your way up for there? What's your approach here?
Don't look at me, but I never open notifications at all. I don't even know where notifications are in HubSpot. Sorry, really. I always start somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't feel like I start with notifications. Usually, when I address notifications during an audit, usually it comes up in the information gathering phase, if you will, where at some point somebody complains that they are getting notified or they're not getting notified or something like that. I think a little bit of that is just going in. There's a lot of places to look, and notifications tend not to be my like first priority is what I want to frame it as, because but some of that is the way people receive information is so different. I work off of my email. Like that is how I work. That is certainly not everyone. That's not everyone in a single organization. And assuming that everyone has the same like mental organization pattern is just incorrect.
Not to be the party breaker for the notifications. I think these are important to leave where each person starts their day. If they start within notifications in HubSpot, those notifications in HubSpot should be only the relevant ones. Otherwise, they waste too much time. If you're like Casey and me, you would start in email. So I try to have zero inbox mantra, so that I only have emails in my primary inbox that should do something with them, snooze them, or react on them. And when I have clean inbox, I feel okay. I did everything, and then I look at my calendar. Some people start in Slack. If this is the place, maybe you should be just sending the relevant notifications from HubSpot to Slack, because it's where they start. So this is where every user starts somewhere else. So bring the context and notifications and everything else as close as possible to where they want to have it, or they have it. And that's how you start pulling them. They will get to the unified customer view, but the alerts should be where they live, wherever that is. If it's WhatsApp, figure it out how to get it into WhatsApp.
Right. Yeah. I think this is one of those like accountability like situations, right? Like we all agreed to do this. Like the point of the notifications is to make sure we do it. And are we putting people in a position to like, if you're not sending it to where they are, or if you're overloading them and then you try to hold them accountable, like it's like Klemen's saying, it's kind of on you, because they have easy excuses to say like, I can't possibly like go through all these notifications. These ones don't really matter. So I have a job to do again, and it's not wade through all your notifications to make sure I'm filling out a property, right? And again, the difference between keeping data clean or maintaining data or filling in a property and saying, okay, Klemen, I get it. But we all agreed to maintain this unified customer view. And you said this was going to help you close more deals. So what's the best way to help you keep the unified customer view like up to date? Right? Because you mentioned that a few different ways people could come from. For me, I'm opening up anti-gravity now, starting up a cloud code session, using the daily ops skill where he looks at HubSpot, he looks at my calendar, he looks at my email, and if there's irrelevant notifications or emails in there, I see it. And I'm using tokens on it, and it's a part of the report, right? And it's not relevant. So the output is not as valuable, right? And can you have those kinds of conversations where you're like, okay, I get it. If we do this differently, like, can we get to this accountability like agreement to where if we do this, then you agree that it's a great outcome for everybody and you'll participate, right, in the process.
And
go ahead.
Just one more thought on that. You should let the user to complete that property at their own convenience, because otherwise you will encourage them to just randomly type something or select a random value, because at that point in time they're not ready mentally to choose the right, close loss reason. Maybe they reserved half an hour end of Friday to go through those. So don't force them Monday morning to fill out those 3 close loss reasons, because you'll not get a useful and relevant data. You will get data, but not a useful one. Yeah.
Like creating relevance. This is where like relevance and timing and context, like just as important for your internal customers as it is your external customers, as it is AI, right? And that's why the only way you can really get to that is by talking to each user, right? And this next one, workflow conflicts, a very specific use case, I think, but property is changing unexpectedly. The thing that we need to address here is any uncertainty related to what's happening, like in the CRM. Like, why did this change? I don't know why this changed. I don't know where this data came from, which has a way of ruining the rest of the data on the screen as well. Because now, if I don't trust this one, I might not be able to trust the other one. Or if I make this change, is that going to change like more data? What's happening here? And we can't be like, oh, it's okay. Just go to the activity feed and then check the workflows box so that you can see all the workflows and all the lists that everybody's a part of. And you can get to the bottom of why that, nobody wants to get to the bottom of that stuff, except for the admins and the RevOps people. How do you help? Now, having said that, people do need to understand, I think, on some level, how the data does flow, why changes happen. How do you walk that line of avoiding the outcome where it's, oh, RevOps is responsible for all the data maintenance and cleanliness. I'm just sales. I'm going to come in. It's supposed to be right. And that's my job. Like, how do you walk that line?
We at Celestial are more and more inclined into let the user feel they're efficient by letting them enter messy data with all the typos, for example. Don't force them to, not do any typos at Chief Technology Officer, because this is a hurdle, a burden for them, and they will be pissed off if they need to be responsible for the typo correctness. Let them just write it down and have the system to clean it up. Now you have technology that can clean it up. The same, goes, let's say, for location. From every source, you always get a different format of location. Or if you type it in, you will have typos, and that's fine. I think the user shouldn't be responsible for that. There are properties which are raw data, where you expect mess to happen, and RevOps should be then cleaning it up if you want to have it standardized. For the location, if you want to use it as a standardized form, as a dropdown, let's say at the state level, I like a month ago, I realized why HubSpot has the default country state property being a free text. For that exact reason. Just let them type in, or let the integration write whatever form, US, USNA, US asterisk, whatever A. Everything is possible, because then you can standardize, so the users don't feel burdened by that quality. And in my experience, even if you'll explain to them what will happen through workflows tomorrow, I mean, workflows in HubSpot for salespeople, I don't think they will ever care, and I don't think they need to. So even if you try to explain them all those workflows and document and walk them through, tomorrow they will forget. So I think as a RevOps and admins, the responsibility is to make it as effortless for them as possible, and you take the burden of standardization, cleaning up. That's how we see it. Muted both of you. I was too long.
Yeah.
So we hit this last one. Lower impact, but so easy. And this is definitely, I think, usually not HubSpot thing, but very common in systems like Salesforce, where people just can't access data that they know is there. They might have input it themselves. And again, it starts to like chip away at what the system can do for you, what you're seeing in any given moment. And you don't try too hard to troubleshoot that. So again, understanding what each user needs and at the user level, right? It sounds like a huge burden to figure out what each unified customer view needs to look like. But when you understand that everybody's process has to have it, and we want it to be in the system versus in their head or in their slide deck or in their spreadsheet, like it should not be an option, whether or not we've documented the unified customer view or not. It has to exist. Because when it does, people see all the context and they know what action to take next, right?
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal here. So I think if we check out these quick diagnostic questions, like this is easy stuff, right? And again, you combine these easy questions, which are easy because we've got a unified customer view, like a common goal that's simple to understand why we need it as an organization. We're not having to do a bunch of, nobody needs a PhD to figure out how unified customer views work and why it's a good idea, right? As opposed to some of the scoring infrastructures that you might have seen. Right? Then we get to ask simple questions to say, can team members find customer context in less than 30 seconds? Right? Do team members trust the data they see? Are workflows running without conflicts? Are unified view properties actually populated? Are notifications driving action? And has team behavior actually changed? And again, because we picked a goal like unified customer view, they will tell you. You won't have to survey them to ask about their behavior. Like, am I oversimplifying this?
No, but I also think there's one, like, so our unified view properties actually popular. What I like about these is you can set the unified customer view up before solving these. The properties one is like the easiest example for me because I feel like that when I'm doing lead scoring is constantly a blocker. It's like, oh, well, we can't use that field because it's not filled out all the time. But like, we don't have any fields that are filled out all the time. So we got to use something. And I feel like that's the same way when we're looking at these unified customer views. Like, okay, if it's not filled out all the time, then how can we get it filled out more? And one way is getting visibility on it. Are workflows running without conflicts? Sometimes that's hard sometimes you don't know that until you have a view that's going to show you the data and things that are going to surface that. Because workflows run in conflict a lot behind the scenes, and so many portals that you don't even know.
As a data from data quality perspective, one of the indications for kind of all of that, as we keep seeing, is deduplication process, which often indicates issues in workflows, in integrations, in how people use properties and everything in HubSpot. And in that case, this is where you see something is wrong, and then you should go and investigate further. Just going through blindly searching for what's broken in 50 active workflows might be a hard task. But when you start to see something unusual or unexpected, this is where you should check and maybe go through those diagnostic questions and also others.
Yeah. And what is the most common way people try to fill in that data, Klemen?
With relevant data?
Like our unified view, like we don't have any properties, and they're all not populated enough. We got to start somewhere. How do we fill in the data that needs to be more populated so we can start with those properties? How has it usually been? Casey, go ahead.
Zoom info.
Yes.
Look, Clement, I don't get them all right. I don't get them all right, but I knew that one.
I'm glad we're over time, so we can finish here.
Oh man. Yeah, it's and then what kind of data can you get from Zoom Info? Demographic data, which means what kind of scores do we build? What kind of data do we maintain? And it's this cycle, right, that we're trying to help you break out of, folks. Like, because those are the systems deciding what your data looks like inside of your org.
Mhm.
And that's where sales is like, okay, that's cool. But I see this person on LinkedIn, super active. I'm just going to go over there and make the sale. Not use any of the Zoom Info data. Because I'm going to see it, and I'm going to see a different title and different everything when I go engage with them on LinkedIn. And now the 100,000 contacts that we paid for, I don't trust any of them. It's just easier for me to go to LinkedIn and check it out.
With all those data vendors, I always say they don't sell you the quality, they sell you the quantity of data. And they don't care about the quality at all. And I can guarantee you, for every data provider, they are proud of 6.7 million records in their database. They don't care about the quality of those 6.7 and accuracy and up-to-dateness, if that's a word. I would start thinking differently.
Clement couldn't even put himself in the
Right. That's the thing. Like, if you need help thinking differently, put the unified customer view as a goal instead of data. Get the clean data that we need, complete the data. Like, all of this comes from, you read that question, are unified view properties actually populated? And think the outcome needs to be, we need to get them all populated. Right? Right? Like, checking, pitfall 2 there. Scroll up a little bit. That's where, is nobody using them because that's not useful data, right? Like, having somebody else fill it in doesn't solve, that issue. So I'm glad, to some extent. This doesn't mean we're going to stop talking about unified customer views. Certainly not. You just can't overstate, folks. It's resonating with a lot of people. This has a way of simplifying the journey to get to cleaner data, trusted data, unified context, all the goals that you have, right? This is a way to bring humans together, put AI in a better position to help you solve long-standing challenges inside of organizations, including things like marketing and sales, misalignment, if you can imagine that. Any final takeaways as we wrap up our 6-parter on unified customer views?
Did we get to 100%?
Let's check. I didn't click anything in particular today.
Yeah, let's click part 6.
So what's next? Well
done.
And we are 95.
95. Okay.
So there's still something more to do.
We're not going to worry about complete data here. And we are going to be happy.
95 is good enough here.
Right.
It says complete, so
it's Sigma 2. It's a 2 Sigma confidence interval. So I think I just said all of those words wrong, but we're good. We're good with 95%. Yeah. If you guys want to learn more, like, office hours every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, free, 11 Central time. This is where we come and talk about this stuff. Happy to share any use cases or case studies that are happening in real time right now. It's usually the stuff we're talking about. So we'd love to have you there. And I appreciate Casey and Klemen for for taking the time to really dig into this
Likewise.
this concept. I think we're on the right track here.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next week.
Till next Tuesday. Everybody have a great week.
Take care.